Hello, I'm Chris Williams, and I'm back with another movie review. This time we're going to be reviewing Avengers End Game. What can I say about it? First off, the movie just starts. No real opening, at least till 15 minutes, a good 15 minutes into the movie. It starts out with Tony Stark, who has been stranded in space. He's stranded on the Guardians of the Galaxy's ship with Nebula, Gamora's sister. All they can do is wait to die because they're out of fuel and out of food. Nebula might live longer because she's a cyborg and she's an alien, so her body might be different from Stark's. But Stark is dying. He makes a last will and testament to go back to Pepper Potts if someone ever finds their bodies or finds the ship at all. But he ends up getting saved by that no account, no good Captain Marvel. I say no account, no good because she doesn't do anything throughout this movie. Thankfully, she's only in this movie a total of 15 minutes. Here we can see Tony Stark making his last will and testament. Or, well, hoping that it will someday get back to Pepper Potts somehow. We see him laying on his back, exhausted. This has been just after the fight with Thanos, it turns out. It turns out they've been stranded in space, but they didn't have much fuel, apparently. Eventually, Captain Marvel takes him and Nebula back to Earth, and they end up reconvening with all of them, making a plan. It turns out a month has passed because it took them a month for Captain Marvel to get Tony Stark and Nebula back to Earth. And what they find is that the Infinity Gauntlet has been used again on this planet far off into space. They have readings of it. The readings are just like when Thanos snapped his fingers and wiped out half of the life in the universe. Well, they all make a plan to go after him. All of them for revenge, as well as to try and save the people. They think they can use the Infinity Gauntlet to bring everyone back. Well, they quickly get into the Guardians of the Galaxy ship that they have now refueled. And let's see. Captain America reminisces about his life and about what's led him up to this point. And he looks into a compass with a picture of his old girlfriend. Of course, the picture is a picture of Peggy Carter in her youth. And he reminisces that he never got to be with her, never got to have a life with her. And Black Widow says nice things to Captain America so that he feels better about himself, basically. I don't exactly remember what she said, but she did give him a bit of a pep talk. And how most likely they'll try to get everyone back. Here, they land on the planet that Thanos had made his home at the end of Infinity War, and we see his armor being used as a scarecrow. Thanos is making a pot of soup, but there's something off about him. It looks like he's nursing one arm, particularly the arm that he's wearing the Infinity Gauntlet on. Well, the Avengers quickly attack him by surprise. They bring him down. They even chop off the gauntlet from his arm. But it really doesn't do anymore because they realize the gauntlet, the Infinity Stones, they've been destroyed. The gauntlet itself still exists, but in a ravaged state, just like the ravaged skin on Thanos' face and arm, where he used the stone's power to destroy the stones. Well, he tells them that it's useless and that he is inevitable, which then Thor uses his Stormbringer to chop off Thanos' head. And they leave the planet defeated. Nebula is sad, even though she hated her father, Thanos. And they all head back to Earth. 5 years have passed since then. Hawkeye has become a vigilante, and he goes after criminals, pretty much hoping that they'll kill him. He says to the criminals he's killing that half the life in the universe is gone, and somehow you guys were allowed to remain alive. So he's killing people, pretty much like the Punisher. He even has a new name. He goes by Ronin now. Or at least that's the costume he's wearing, because in the comics, that costume he wears is the Ronin costume. This fight with the Yakuza was pretty good. But meanwhile, Ant-Man has returned to the present. See, he had been in the microverse for the last 5 years. Well, not exactly. Apparently, the microverse is somewhat outside of time, and he arrived back on Earth 5 years later, because for him it was 45 minutes. And he goes to the Avengers mansion, or at least base, and he tells the Avengers, "Hey, it's me. Do you remember me? You know me as Ant-Man." And the Avengers quickly go out to meet him. Ant-Man Scott Lang had just been with his daughter, and he had told her how big she got. He was happy that his daughter was fine because he found out about what happened with Thanos and that half the people on the planet are dead. So he went to a memorial for the people who Thanos killed, and he didn't find his daughter's name, but he did find his own. Well, Scott Lang tells the Avengers that he can now has an option for time travel, and the Avengers listen to him. At first, they weren't so keen on it, and but they eventually do believe him, and they try to get Tony Stark, who now has a daughter, and Tony Stark says, "No, this won't work because you need to be able to calculate this to such a degree. Otherwise, you could end up anywhere in time, or end up killing yourselves." Well, eventually, Tony gets on board because he figures out how to time travel, and he tells Pepper Potts that he has a plan. Now, Tony Stark's plan is to bring the Infinity Gems to them and resurrect everyone now, because he doesn't want to end up losing his daughter by altering time. So all the Avengers break into 3 separate teams and go out to 3 points in time where each of the Infinity Gems had been. They go to the point back in the Avengers first movie where in New York there had been 3 gems all in the same area. So they have to get 1 gem from the Ancient One, Doctor Strange's mentor, as well as one Infinity Stone that was known as the Tesseract, as well as the one that Loki has. They end up getting 2 of them, the one from the Ancient One, as well as the one that Loki had, but Loki ends up stealing the Tesseract. So Loki, at least another version of him, will be back in the Marvel Universe, because he now has the ability to travel anywhere, so there must be a duplicate Loki somewhere in time. Well, what later on, the other team that goes back to the time where the Guardians of the Galaxy first formed, well, Nebula was in that team with War Machine, but because she's a cyborg, she shares a network with her past self, so that Nebula ended up informing Thanos about their Avengers plan. And Thanos decides, instead of getting the stones in his own time, to head towards the future and get all the stones there. And he does that. By inserting the past Nebula, and she goes to the future, and this allows her to open up a warp for Thanos to cross over from the past to the future. And what happens is Thanos ends up going into a fight with all the Avengers, but not before the Avengers manage to wish everyone back. So Black Panther, Scarlet Witch, and the rest have been resurrected from the dead, and they commence to try and kill Thanos. It's a big, epic fight beyond anything we've ever seen before. Thanos even does the greatest thing of all by beating down Captain Marvel, which I think is pretty much the only part she should be in this movie, is seeing Captain Marvel being beaten down. Even Spider-Man lends a hand by making sure Thanos can't get the Infinity Stones on the Avengers Infinity Gauntlet. Well, what happens later on is Iron Man pulls a huge sacrifice and Thanos is defeated. I won't exactly tell you how, but it does end epically. And they end up instead of destroying the Infinity Stones, they have to return them back into the past. Otherwise, they could end up creating different timelines where those whole worlds have been completely destroyed. And they do that. But in doing so, Captain America decides to remain in the past. He decides to remain back in 1945 with Peggy Carter, and they grow old together. We see the last of Captain Marvel as he's an old man, and he gives Falcon his shield. Falcon is going to be the new Captain America. This movie was good, and it was well worth that price, too. Now, if you have a chance, go see this movie. You'll enjoy it. It was a good movie. In fact, it was more of a movie than any of the other of the MCU movies, in my opinion. I thought it was maybe better than the first Avengers movie, but I might not be so sure. It's been a while since I've seen the first Avengers movie. Now, if you like this review, subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that bell and leave a like and leave some comments down below. And remember, stay tuned for future videos because eventually I'm going to release my own indie comic book, Scumdogs. And I want you all to know when I am going to release it. So keep checking back for more news on it. I'm Chris Williams, and I'm signing out.